This is Grandmaster Boris Alterman and you're watching Gambit Guide. We are going to start the new series of Blackmar Diemer Gambit line after d4, d5 and e4. So I would say this is the most debuts from the standard natural point of view move, of course. When white is just given his center pawn for seems like nothing, this opening line becomes quite playable on the intermediate and even in some advanced games. I found players who are using it very successful. So let's understand what happened after d takes e4, which is the most natural continuation, of course. White cannot win this pawn immediately back. Of course, we can try and play in something like, I don't know, like knight d2, but in that case, the d4 pawn is not protecting anymore. Of course, white played e4 not with the idea to win this pawn immediately, and that's why we call this as a gambit line. So white is ready to sacrifice the pawn and to get the better development, so to get the advantage in the development. It's quite interesting history about this position, because more than 100 years ago, the English chess player Blackmar introduces this pawn sacrifice, but after d takes e4, he always played in this position f3, which is a pawn sacrifice after e takes f3 and knight takes f3. White is not only getting the better development of his pieces, but also white is intending to bring the bishop to the c4 square. Because of better control over the center squares, white could organize quite serious pressure over the black's position, especially after short castling. So white's rook already is going to attack over the f file. So we have two open files in the center, e and f file, and also weakest spot in the black position f7 will force black to play at some point move like e6, and in that case the bishop on c8 is locked, and so white could continue just improving and developing all his pieces towards the center squares, and then organize quite interesting attack on the king side, which we will study later on. However, this idea f3 was considered as interesting for many years, but then came quite strong response from black. So instead of simply capture on f3, black could counterattack the center instantly with e5. And this move, I would say, puts a big question mark of the whole idea of Blackmar. So let's understand what is the situation now. After d takes e5 and queen takes d1 check, king takes d1, white's king lost the castling right, so white cannot dream anymore about his attack against the black's king, and black's pieces are very easy coming into the game. It's after knight c6, black is attacking white's pawn on e5, so then bishop is coming very fast in the game. So black is doing just fantastic. After f takes e4, in case white is winning back the pawn, and knight takes e5, so only isolated pawn, and great opportunity for black to continue his development. After bishop g4, long casting, so white's king has to find a safe place on the board. Yeah. So it happened just in the middle of the last century, when the idea of Blackmar was supported by quite interesting idea, interesting, I would say, move, or the moves order, which found Diemer. And in this position, after d takes e4, he decided not to play immediately, but first of all to attack the pawn after knight c3, intending knight takes c4. Definitely black can simply move in this position c6, and we reach the Caro-Kann position after knight takes c4. But of course, the most natural continuation for black is to protect the pawn on e4 by knight f6. Definitely knight f6 is better than move like f5, since after f5, white would be very lucky to reach the same position of the Blackmar gambit, but with the black's pawn on f5. So in that case, white is having quite strong outpost for his knight on e5 and his attack over the center squares. So you see white is already having quite good development advantage, and the bishop coming to c4. The other bishop could go to f4. White could play short casting or to play queen e2 and then long casting at some point. Black is having not only weak square on e5, but also in the future the black's pawn should go from e7 to e6 probably, and also it's not black. Just for black it's quite difficult to solve all the problems at the same time. So white at least would gain a few more tempi in the development when black has to protect his pawns in the center. Okay, knight f6. This is of course the most natural continuation, and only now, so improvement of the idea of Blackmar. f3. So let's understand what's the difference. So why black cannot play e5 the same way. The point is that e5 and d takes e5, it's quite difficult for black to solve all his problems. Threading the queens after queen takes d1, king takes d1, and knight d7, trying to equalize the material with the future capture on e5. Strangely enough, black is getting into the big trouble. This position happened in a few games and all finished with rapid victory for white after knight d5. Black has no time for playing knight a6 because bishop takes a6, just removing the last defender of the c7 square, and knight takes c7 coming soon. And bishop d6, as we can understand, black cannot play because simply white would capture this bishop after e takes d6. So the only chance for black is to play king d8. In that case, after bishop g5, so we can see that black is just going to lose material. f6 only move, take on f6. So no time for black to play h6 because f takes g7, discover a check, and the rook on h8 is gone. So white is winning immediately, and after g takes, knight takes f6. So the best for black is to play bishop e7, otherwise black is going to lose more material. And after knight takes e4, at least white is just having 2 pawns up for no any compensation. So this catastrophe could happen in the black Diemer gambit already in the opening, when you just play one mistake e5, one slip, and the game is over. Unfortunately, this happened quite often in the gambit lines. So one slip and you lose a game. So you have to be very careful already in the opening. So in case that e5 is not working, black has only more or less 3 options here. One is just to accept the gambit. E takes f3, which is leading to the standard ideas already developed by Blackmar. e3, so giving away the pawn, but allowing white just simply to continue his development after bishop takes e3, queen d2, and then long castling with quite promising game. And bishop f5. So move which also a bit dangerous move, because in that case after f takes e4, knight takes e4, white has quite unpleasant move queen f3, attacking simultaneously the bishop on f5 and the knight on e4. So I saw that in such a position, once again, it's quite easy to go wrong. Let's say one game between Gerhard Zimek and Andreas Kropp from Dortmund Open Tournament from 2006 continuing here at 96. So black is trying to protect with the knight, also bishop and also pawn on b7, but white is having just tempting move, bishop f4, restarting idea of bishop takes d6. So black's bishop on f5 is hanging. And after black's mistake, queen d7, that looks like a blunder, but this is a blunder. Since after bishop takes d6, black cannot capture this bishop with any of his pieces. Let's say after c takes d6, trying also to protect the pawn on b7. White simply plays bishop b5. Knight c6 only move, and after d4, d5, white is winning. Knight for no compensation. In case black captures d6 with a queen, white simply could take the bishop on f5. And last opportunity for us to play e takes d6 is not giving black a chance to survive after queen takes b7. The rook on a8 is hanging, and after only try queen c6, we are winning immediately with a simple pin. Bishop b5. So, if you look at the position after f3, that of course you can ask, why not to capture simply on f3? So the great popularity of this position, of course, thanks to Diemer, who used it in many games, started when white has a choice here to capture with a knight on f3 or with a queen on f3. In many of his games, Emil Diemer used to play queen takes f3. It's a bit funny move because it's allowed just sacrifice the second pawn, so pawn on d4, in order to continue very fast, bring all his pieces in the game. But the position is not so open. I mean, black's king still in the center, but there is no any direct threat against the black's king. However, once again, as I said before, we have to be very careful. Let's say one of the game played in 2003 in São Paulo Championship between Arnulfo Cardo and Lukac Abdallah continued. Queen takes d4, bishop e3, queen e5, and after long castling, black for a second decided white just missed and played bishop g4, pinning the queen. However, queen takes b7, strangely enough, leads to the winning position for white almost immediately. So black cannot protect his rook on a8, but after bishop takes d1, he was very surprised after queen c8, checkmate. So it doesn't matter here, even queen takes e3. Still after king d1, it's quite difficult to stop both. Queen takes a8, or after bishop takes d1, queen c8, checkmate. So this interesting line, white just mating the black's king, is just 10 moves. The other opportunity after bishop p3, when black could play queen b4 and long castling, and only now to play bishop g4, looks very good for black. So once again, seems like white is going to lose exchange for nothing. b7 pawn has been protected now with the black's queen on b4. However, even now, black is in the losing situation, and you can find white's combination, I believe, without any problem. So white to move and win. So because position of black's king is so cramped, so we play just simply knight to b5, threatening knight takes e7, and this is a checkmate. And black cannot survive this threat. This threat is so strong. Then after knight a6 or queen a5, you just simply play queen takes b7, and once again restarting, refreshing the threat knight takes c7. At the same time, b7 queen is very strong because it's also targeting the rook on a8, and as we know already, bishop takes d1 leads to the checkmate after queen c8. So this very short catastrophe, less than 10 moves, could happen in the Blackmar Diemer gambit. But now, of course, let's look at, I would say, more serious opportunity in the gambit line we are studying. So knight c3 move for the first time I found out that was played by Duras in his game against Simic from the Peasant Simultaneous Exhibition 1912, before even the Diemer developed the theory of this line. So he played knight c3, and after knight f3, knight f6, f3, he takes f3 and played the classical move, knight takes f3, which according to the intuition should be the best continuation. Still, of course, queen takes f3 is quite tricky move, quite interesting opportunity for white, but knight takes f3 is the most natural move. So after e6, bishop d3, bishop b4, and short castling. It's clear that after black already played e6, white bishop has nothing to do on c4, and the b1 h7 is the most, I would say, appropriate diagonal for the light square bishop. Here, instead of standard move like knight bd7 or short castling, black immediately decided to take on c3, and after b takes c3 to play short castling, and white developed extremely strong attack very fast. Bishop a3 in the open position, the pair of bishop is a quite serious advantage. Rook e8, knight e8, knight e5. All white pieces looking towards the black's king side. We already could smell that something is wrong with black's position, and all kind of bishop takes h7, knight takes f7 is just on the air. Black played knight c6, completely overlooked white's next combination. Can we find it? So white is having already too many open files and diagonals, and all his pieces looking towards the king side, and white's queen is just move away from them. So white has knight takes f7, ruins black's king side. So suddenly white is winning almost immediately after king takes f7, because queen h5 check forced black's king to go to g8. Why? The g6 will be met by queen takes h7, and this is a checkmate. Don't forget the knight on f6 is pinned. After king g8, so white simply can play rook takes f6, and black also cannot escape from the checkmating string. For instance, queen takes f6, then queen takes e8, and the mate is the next move. The similar situation happened after g takes f6, and in that case queen takes h7 is a checkmate. So another miniature. After knight takes f7, black moved his queen to d5, but of course white is just continuing his attack on the king side by knight h6, king h8. So I believe that already possible even to sacrifice on f6, but Duras just moved his queen to d2. A very typical move. It's not only improving position of the queens, but also connect white's rooks. Now rook takes f6 or knight f7 just increase the potential of white's attack. Knight e7, knight f7 check, king g8, and now it's time to demolish black's position on the king side with the removing of his last defender. Rook takes f6, g takes f6, queen h6 intending the checkmate in one, queen takes h7. Black cannot capture. Look at that. After check, we can play simply bishop g6 and the game is over. Threatening also queen f7 and also queen h8 with a checkmate. But I believe that even move like rook f1 is winning immediately. So after queen h6, black moved the pawn f5 and knight g5, threatening the checkmate. Queen takes h7. e5. and black resigned since after check, check. Knight is pinned, so only move is queen to g8 and then queen f6. And this is a checkmate. It's coming with the next move after queen f7, queen takes f7. So this great attack performed by Duras, I believe, increased the popularity of the idea, which, as I said before, in the was developed by Blackmar. However, when Emil Diemer started to play this line, so that usually he developed his attack with the queen takes f3 after d4, d5, e4, d takes e4, and knight c3, knight f6, f3, e takes f3. He played queen takes f3. So let's understand that in case black is just simply developing his pieces after e6 or knight c6, which happened in one of the games between Diemer and Klaus Locher in Lindau match. So white just simply moved his bishop to b5, bishop d7, knight e2, e6, a3, avoiding the threading after knight b4. I'm not sure that this move is necessary. White could simply play short castling. a6, bishop d3, bishop e7. I would like just to show you that white's attack on the king side is very, very unpleasant when black is just having problem with his space. Bishop e3, short castling, and Diemer played long castling. Knight e8, g4, bishop g5, h4. It's quite difficult for black to organize a counterplay. e5 always could be met by d5. Here, after bishop takes e3 and queen takes e3, white is still keeping very strong initiative. So his plan is quite simple, quite obvious. He's just moving his pawn forward, trying to ruin black's pawn structure on the king side, when for black it's almost impossible to organize any attack on the queen side, so on the opposite side of the board. So after h4, his opponent played bishop takes h4, which of course is a decisive mistake. So because it opens all the files on the king side. So the weakness of the h7 square is a decisive factor now. How to win it? White came just with a simple sacrifice. Rook takes h4. Queen takes h4. Rook h1. Attacking the queen. Queen e7. And let's try to find the fourth checkmate. Bishop takes h7 check. Bishop g6. Basically it's any bishop's move is the same in this situation. King h8 and the classical checkmate pattern, which I believe you know and you studied already. White to move and win. Rook h8 sacrificing, and black resigned since after king takes h8. And queen h3 check. There is no way to stop forthcoming queen h7 check, and this is a checkmate. Queen h4 takes, and once again just 20 moves and the game is finished. Let's look one more example from the Diemer's practicing with his favorite opening line. d4, d5, e4, D takes e4. Knight c3, knight f6. f3, e takes f3, queen takes f3, queen takes d4. Bishop e3, queen b4. Long castling. So we know that the capturing of the second pawn on d4 is quite a dangerous move. And here, instead of bishop g4, which we studied before, the Diemer's opponent, the same Klaus Loher, played knight c6, trying to develop his pieces at least. However, it's not going to be so easy. Knight b5. Threatening knight takes c7. Queen a5. Queen f2. It's not so clear what exactly White's idea here after e6, but suddenly Diemer played queen e1, and wow, Black is in a very, very difficult situation. He never can accept the threading of the queens because White is just having intermediate knight takes c7 check, and after king e7, bishop c5, and this is a checkmate. However, how to stop queen takes a5 and knight takes c7 with a decisive threat? Black played bishop b4, but this already cannot save him from the losing the game. c3. It was necessary to play bishop d6, but Black sacrificed. Queen takes a2, c takes b4, check, check, knight takes b4. Black is trying to organize his own attack against White's king, but it's too late, of course. Knight takes c7, check, and Black is lost after king a7 and bishop c5. This is a checkmate position. It's quite interesting how White developed his initiative by the sacrificing of the pawns, which is very typical or a standard idea which we already studied. In the Blackmar Diemer gambit, the position is not so open, so White, for using his development advantage, should play very, very aggressive. So try to find very fast the targets for his pieces. And when you organize the attack, also you have to be very precise. Use a lot of tactics. So you have to be very good in the tactical complication, of course, with the development tactical skills. In the next lesson, we are going to study more example from the Diemer's practice, and later on we will see that even on the advanced and the top practicing, we can find the games played with the quite interesting and quite famous Blackmar Diemer gambit line. This is Boris Alterman, and thanks everybody for watching, and see you next week.